Hello all, Mr. Wavels here. This is the first video lecture to our American Industrialization unit. The objectives for this lesson are to first be able to define the terms Industrial Revolution, monopoly, trust, vertical consolidation, and horizontal consolidation. You should be able to identify and explain the needs of industry after this lecture, and you should also be able to compare and contrast two types of monopolies. First off, what is the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution began in England and moved over to the United States predominantly during the Civil War when there was a high need for manufactured products during the war effort. It represents a rapid switch from making goods by hand to making goods with machines. In order to successfully go about an Industrial Revolution, you need several things. First off, you need inventions in the first place. You need things to make. And you need patents. Patents are licenses to make products. So if I come up with the best design for the most epic pooper scooper you have ever seen or heard of, I would go to the government and issue a patent, or have the government issue a patent. Once the government issues a patent, that idea is mine, and if anyone ever tries to steal that idea, they are breaking the law. So during this time period, patents are issued in record numbers, and many inventions that you've already heard of come about, like the telephone, the typewriter, and also even the escalator. You also need resources. You need raw materials like iron, coal, and oil to run factories and be able to use mechanisms to create these products and manufacture. You need power to run your factories. These include steam power. And with Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla's invention of electricity and ways to actually create and use electricity, you have electric run power plants. You also need labor to run your factories, preferably cheap labor, because the less you pay your workers, the more you make in the end. Usually these were made of immigrants who worked for the least amount of money because they were trying to make a living in this new land. You also need technology. You need to apply science to industry. An example of this comes with the Bessemer process. Now, Henry Bessemer invented a new way to convert iron ore into steel, which made the process much cheaper and much easier to mass produce. Now, this revolutionized the steel industry and made it so people could make it much faster and much more effectively. You also need communication tactics. You need to be able to get information faster, and you need to be able to use technologies such as the telegraph and the telephone to communicate. Furthermore, you need to be able to transport your goods. This is where your railroads come in. Railroads transported people rapidly, they transported goods rapidly, and they lowered the cost of shipping. If you can ship something faster in higher quantities, it's going to make it cheaper for you in the end. And if you can get more stuff to factories, you can increase production. One of the most important railroads was the Transcontinental Railroad, which connected east to west in the United States. It encouraged people to move westward as well, thus settling the untamed West. It created time zones. Before this time period, people pretty much in each town just set their watches or tried to tell time using the sun and where it was. However, this would be an issue if you're trying to catch a train. So in order to standardize that, they made actual time zones so that everything was the same. And finally, they were used by the public, but it's important to keep in mind that they were privately owned. The railroad companies were the ones that actually ran these things. The government didn't have much say at this time point because they were literally private companies. So, you've got an industrial revolution, and now it's time for people to start taking advantage of things. So industrialists take advantage of the Industrial Revolution. One of the ways they did this was through monopolies. Now, monopoly means to have complete control over a commodity, business, or service, which means you own the entire thing, either the process by which it's made or all of the products. These are often called trusts. There's an oil trust, there's a steel trust, there's a railroad trust. These are groups of businesses that control a commodity. And their main goal is to eliminate competition by driving competitors out of the market. Now, if this sounds familiar, it's because many of you have played a game called Monopoly, where the rules are exactly the same. Eliminate competition by driving competitors out of the market. In the game Monopoly, you try and buy up all the property you can, and you try and make sure that nobody else can control any more than you do. That is a monopoly. There are two types of monopolies. One is called vertical consolidation. Notice how the arrow to the right is going up and down. That's vertical. Now, in order to have vertical consolidation, you have to control all phases of production, from getting raw materials all the way to selling the finished product. Now, one of the most famous examples of vertical consolidation comes from Carnegie Steel. Carnegie controlled every phase of the steel industry, from mining the ore to selling the beam. He owned the coal mines. He owned the iron ore mines. He owned the steel mills. He owned the ships that transported them, as well as the railroads that transported them as well. Every single aspect of production was under Carnegie's control. Another means of consolidation, another monopoly, is called horizontal consolidation. Now, instead of owning every aspect of control, you concentrate on one single aspect. Now, this example can be found in John D. Rockefeller's company, Standard Oil. Instead of going for the oil instead of going for the oil drills and all the other aspects of consolidation, he decided to go straight for the oil refineries. And at its highest point, Standard Oil controlled 90% of all refineries in the United States. So notice how the arrow is instead of going up and down, it's going from left to right. So they would concentrate on one single aspect of production. For example, oil refineries. They'd look at a bunch of independent oil refineries and buy each one individually. So that way they owned all the ones they can get their hands on. So let's see how much you retained. Let's ask some review questions. 1. What were the major needs of industry during American industrialization? 2. How did industrialists take advantage of the Industrial Revolution? And 3. Compare and contrast vertical and horizontal consolidation.